OK, so foreign aid, massive talking point here at conference, especially today. But just how much money should Britain be sending abroad? Yes, that's what I went out and about and spoke to a couple of people here at conference to get the views of the general public.
Britain is my home, and that's what I care about most. I'm not particularly interested in propping up failing governments and their failing projects. I'm interested in improving our British citizens' lives and their futures. I'm a young person myself. There's so many different things that I want to achieve in life, and I want to know that my government's on my own side.
We're helping people in genuine need, but my understanding that loads of money is going to climate change rubbish initiatives, total scams in India and places like that. So we should not be doing that.
No, I support the foreign aid budget. I would prefer to see it reinstated to 0.7%. I know that there are a lot of international development charities that do fantastic work. I think it's very good value for money to be able to cut off a lot of problems at the source. One of the big problems that's been discussed here is large-scale immigration from places that are being affected by famines and droughts, for instance, in East Africa.
All right, let's finish the show with a bit of a debate. I'm joined now by the head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck, and the chief executive officer at the Coalition for Global Prosperity, Ryan Henson. Elliot, I'll start with you. Foreign aid, scrap it?
I think certainly we need to look at cutting it. We need to be honest about what foreign aid is. It's not humanitarian spending designed to save lives, not in reality. What it is a vast sum of money that goes towards often absurd and at the very least absurdly optimistic projects. Let's just take a couple, for example. So in recent years, we've given about £12 million to a project to provide condoms in Pakistan, a highly conservative religious society, which you're not going to change overnight with £12 million. Another one, £1.6 million.
That's a lot of condoms, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, £1.6 million for peace and reconciliation in Sudan, a country which, following that project, descended into utter civil war. So we need to be honest.
I get that point. Is it a waste of money?
Absolutely not. I support overseas aid for two reasons. First, it's the right thing to do. It could be us. We have a duty as a relatively wealthy country to look after those who can't help themselves. But I also support it because it's in our national interest. It makes far more sense to help people where they are rather than have them come to the UK or have to deal with the consequences of a failed state. Far more effective to help people as they are rather than deal with the consequences.
Can we have a couple of examples of how somewhere where it's worked really well?
Sure. Well, I think let's look at vaccines, for example. The UK led the world in creating a vaccine to COVID. We shared that vaccine with countries in the developing world. We're now doing the same on malaria. So the British people can be really, really proud that we've done so much to keep people alive who may otherwise have died from malaria.
Did that came out of foreign aid then?
Yeah.
It was the fact that we sent some vaccines.
Yeah, it's through the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, yeah.
That's all right, isn't it?
Certainly a good example of where foreign aid spending has been used well, but as your viewers will know and as British taxpayers will know, that's not the norm. And listen, ultimately, if you want to use British aid money in a way that actually saves lives, they estimate, there's an organisation that estimates that the cheapest way to save a life is to give $5,000 to essentially fund malaria treatments. If we really wanted to save lives, it would be going exclusively to that, essentially. Yeah. But because there's this nebulous desire for what we call soft power, but which nobody can ever really define and which nobody can ever really measure, we end up pumping money into projects that at best fail and at worst are just, frankly absurd right from the off.
Yeah, there is a perception, isn't there, that quite a lot of British taxpayers' money does find its way into the back pockets of grubby dictators or completely pointless girl bands like the Ethiopian Spice Girls Yagna, which is one of the infamous cases the Daily Mail wheels out every now and again. So that stuff does happen, doesn't it?
It does, but I think we need to be cautious not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you abolished the MOD every time there was a procurement scandal, there'd be no army left, for example. Right. Most aid is really well spent, and it's well spent because here we are right now scrutinising it. Parliament scrutinises it, the Daily Mail scrutinises it as you do.
Exactly. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis at the moment. Tax is the highest it's ever been, I think, since the Second World War anyway.
Yeah.
Is it now harder to justify spending somewhere in the region of £11 billion a year on foreign projects? Some of which I believe I'm right in saying, some of which goes to China?
I think that has since been wrapped up, but you're absolutely right. It has gone to China in the past. It's still going to India. And I think the problem is, listen, we're not very good at spending money even domestically. Whitehall is very, very bad at spending money even domestically. So the idea that it's going to be better at spending money abroad, precisely the places where British taxpayers won't actually... directly experience it, I think it's for the birds.
Is it hard to justify then? You know, you've got people in this country at the moment who are thinking, I've got to have to buy a new electric car at some point. I'm going to have to get a heat pump. I've been told to do all of this. You know, the cost of my weekly shop's going through the roof. But rest assured, there's a family in Nigeria who've got a few more goats.
Well, look, the point I would make is if we don't do overseas aid, the problems that will affect us will happen anyway. It's just that they'll be worse. Take, for example, Jim Mattis, who served Donald Trump as Defence Secretary, not a bleeding heart liberal by any means. He said to Congress, the less you spend on aid, the more I have to spend on bullets. Better to deal with problems now than deal with the consequences afterwards.
What a way to finish the show. Chaps, thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Great stuff. That is, of course, the head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck, and the Chief Executive Officer at the Coalition for Global Prosperity, Ryan Henson. Hey, which side of the fence are you on? GB Views and GBnews.com.